another opportunity for people in the public to attend.
Excuse me. I know the commission members. I don't know all of the people in the audience.
Oh, okay.
I know some. So when you speak, you'll have to give me your name and your ward, please.
Charlie Lovett, Ward 2.
Mr. Chairman?
Is there anyone else around for, oh, yeah, Bernie?
Bernie Folter, Ward 3.
No.
I have a feeling that some of the people here are here because they want to take a position and, you know, have that aired on CCTV. Now, I know what you said at the beginning about that this was an educational function, but I do think vigorous debate also serves an educational function. So I would hope that the community, including tonight, has every opportunity for vigorous civil debate on this very important question.
You know, Bernie, we had the meetings required by law. These meetings are simply because this town commission wanted to be able to explain what they did and what the meaning of the changes were. That's like being invited to my house for supper and then spitting in the soup.
You do that?
That's a good idea. Excuse me?
No, that was.
No, I think it's the IT guy. I have no problem, oops, Rusty.
We have given up every Friday night since this started. Now, you people are only giving up tonight to come. You weren't here for all of the other explanations and all the other voting or information about it. Either you didn't care, or now all of a sudden you do care. And I will be voting no on your motion.
Right?
We were obliged by law to have one public here, and we had 3.
That's true. We did.
So now you know what it's like being a counselor and then sitting here through this process where we're talking about people not coming to meetings and weighing in on the budget. So you're telling me that if you didn't come to that meeting, you don't care about the budget either. That's not fair to say that to any of these people, because I opted to give up my Friday night to sit here. That's why I ran. They didn't do that. So some people do wait until the last minute.
I think go ahead, Paul.
I was just wondering if Nikki is saying if I didn't go to any of the budget meetings in the council, and because I showed up at the last one, you'd redo them all.
No, but I wouldn't blame you for not caring about your budget.
Well, I can,
It's
but
Nick,
I
it's
couldn't
Nick,
make all
it's
of
Nick
this.
Sure, it is not our place to judge why or why not, why someone is or isn't here tonight. I don't think that's our place. I think we have 15, 16 people here. I think we should listen to what they have to say, and then I think we should continue this meeting. And
I concur. I think we should continue the meeting because the people did bother to come. I mean, I think it's unfortunate it's not CCTV, but we're not here to grandstand, we're here to get information, and this commission is ready to do that. But Bob, you go ahead.
I'll amend my motion to basically do what Charlene and Ray are suggesting. We go ahead and have this meeting this evening, and hear what people have to say, but then continue this meeting at a time when it can be televised.
You understand that? Tracy?
Yeah, I got it.
Does the second agree with that?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, that does raise the question whether people who speak tonight without being aired on television can then repeat their quote-unquote testimony and opinion at the second session so as to get on the video. And I would argue, well, I'm not a commission member, but I would say if they wanted to repeat their message, that's fine. That would give them the option of not speaking tonight, and then, well, no, they do have the option of not speaking tonight,
Right.
and then showing up at the next one when television is on.
That's right.
Or, I hope they won't be shut off if they deliver the same speech at both sessions.
Well, this isn't an oratory contest, you know? Now, I know how you like to do it.
I'm just expressing my opinion.
Let me make sure that my commission is completed.
We're creating already, the level of contention around this room is stunning. This is educational. These are an opportunity for people to ask questions and get answers. Rusty, I appreciate the time you put in. We need to continue to educate as long as we can educate so that people who come in to vote are the most educated voters we have. But anyone who walked in here right now with the kind of snide remarks that are going back and forth amongst those on that commission and those within the audience, this is not an informational thing. This is already starting to take sides. This is for information. I've got a question to ask, and I plan to ask a question now. I would like to have it on CCTV because I'd like to have more people to be able to hear it. And I know a lot of people in our community listen to CCTV, and that's their way of getting information. But the level of contention that's already been created in here, just on a simple motion of whether or not we try to have it on CCTV or not, a lot of the other stuff going around here, you need to put that away. We need to
Mr.
put
Seaman,
those conversations away.
Bernie.
And let's get on with the questions. If we're going to ask them tonight, let's ask them and let's get on with the questions. If we're not going to ask them tonight, let's put all the other stuff behind, come back another day and ask the questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Hang on.
Excuse me, Mr. Seaman?
Richard Seaman, Ward 3.
I know, Richard, but I didn't have
I
your
apologize.
voice. That's okay.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a problem with continuing tonight. I don't have a
I don't
problem
either.
with listening to these questions.
I don't either, and I have no problem if this commission chooses to continue the meeting to another time. I have no problem with the same people coming up asking the same questions if that's what they need. That's fine. But it's up to you. You've got the motion made. Joe?
We didn't have the ability to know that we weren't going to be on CCTV tonight, and apparently neither did these people. I would think, let's take a consensus. If every individual that's here tonight to ask a question would prefer to just wait until the TV's here, then let's adjourn and wait till the TV's here. If somebody wants to ask questions tonight, let them ask the questions tonight. This is,
Right.
we wanted to be open, transparent, and give everybody their option. Let's give them their option now. If they don't want to waste their time tonight because they would prefer it to be on CCTV, and I would prefer them to have the option of it being on CCTV. I've had my chance to say what I want to say at every meeting. If they want to ask questions tonight, let's give them the time. If they prefer to, let's cut this short and then have our next meeting, let's cut it short and have our next meeting.
I have no problem, but let me explain again the CCTV because I may have been major problem. I got a call saying they were having a difficult time and would we be doing anything different tonight than we did last week? And I said, no. He said, because we'll play the hell out of the old one. I said, fine. So I said, don't kill yourself. And then I start thinking, well, you know what? That's not right, because if we get a crowd. So I called him back. I said, hey, I think I was a little too hasty. We could have a good crowd, and it could be different than the last meeting. And he said, quote, well, I guess I'll have to come over in my paint clothes. But apparently he got stuck in the paint. So I have no problem of whatever you decide to do as a commission. I happen to think we should open it up and answer questions tonight. And if they choose to wait and we continue the meeting, they can ask them the next time. I have no problem. And Dick, I think what you're seeing is a little bit of what started at the last city council meeting and carried over till tonight.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, before I call for a vote, go ahead.
In my opinion, contention about policy and process is a legitimate function of any democratic gathering, and therefore, I find Mr. Seaman's attitude about contention very disturbing.
Well, you and Mr. Seaman will have to take that outside.
I wanted to get that said publicly.
Yeah, but
I
you
know.
gotta save
No,
it to
this
say it
is-
again.
Okay, it's not on television, but there are people here. This is public.
Okay. All right, is there any other discussion before we move to question? Go ahead, go ahead. Could you repeat the question?
Oh,
If you can.
I have to go back for a minute. It was a motion by Mr. Porter, seconded by Nick Kolosky, that we continue with the meeting and hear the questions and then continue the meeting to another time when CCTV can be present.
Everyone understand that? Could you have a roll call, please?
Russell Fowler,
Yes, reluctantly.
Raymond Gagnon,
Yes.
Ronald Gilbert,
Yes.
Cynthia Howard,
Yes.
Nicholas Kolosky,
Absolutely.
Paul
Yes or
Chap,
no?
Yes, and.
Paul Cass,
Yes.
Philip Osgood,
Yes.
Robert Porter,
Yes?
George Cacavero.
Yes.
And I just want you to know, I'm just putting you down as yes. I'm not ad-libbing.
Any no comments, just a vote. Now we'll open it up to the floor for questions. Wow, that's one way to do it.
Bob Lovett, Ward 2.
Bob, I mean,
I'd say
okay,
right
you
here.
can stand there and speak if you want.
Yeah. I'll stand.
Yeah, at least that helps.
I didn't need to be on TV to ask the question to you. Where did you develop a 2-year term limit on the positions? Did you, or could you have considered a 4 or even a 6-year term limit, which would have provided more stability across the board for the positions?
When you want to try that? Go ahead.
I think the simple, quick answer is that we were using the Manchester charter as a template, and that was what they were using in Manchester, 2-year term, and that's, I think that's, I don't know that we debated at any great length changing that. We just took the 2-year term because it was what was in the Manchester charter.
I also believe that's what we have currently.
Yeah, the question that has arisen that might help, that why I don't think you'd want it longer than 2, is that New Hampshire is not a recall state. So if you get a city mayor who either doesn't steal from the city or doesn't reveal city secrets, you're stuck with him for the term he's been elected, he or she's been elected.
Yes, sir. But likewise, I now, in the first year, have learned my job. The second year, I'm trying to run to keep my job and be reelected. You have a high turnover, and when you're stripping out the powers of what the city manager has and conveying them to now the mayor, he's finally learning, or she is learning her job. Now we've got to have a repeat. The next person is, and so we have no continuity across the years. I'm not saying 6 years, but 2 years is pretty volatile as far as the city government goes across the board, with all of you leaving who potentially that had the knowledge of what has occurred in the past.
Well, we did have some rather interesting discussions, because I happen to think electing the entire council as we do now is ridiculous, and I was trying to get a difference so we could stagger the aldermen, because you're right, you could turn the entire place over overnight, and now you've lost all your chance at continuity. So, and we did discuss, maybe not at great length, but we did discuss the length of the term.
But I don't think we ever, in response to your question, I don't think we ever considered or discussed the idea of 4 or 6-year terms.
No.
That was never on the agenda. The city administration had given us a list of concerns, and one of the issues they had was that they wanted a series of staggered terms. And we thought, well, how would we do that? And so we were thinking of going back to the old way, pre-2003 way, where we actually had yearly elections and terms were for 3 years. But that's the only time we ever discussed it. We did, quite frankly, never discussed, it never came up in conversation for 6 years.
Good.
Back there.
Not at this point, but it's an idea. It's certainly something to consider.
Go ahead, your name and ward.
Tom Rock, Ward 2. I got a question on the boards and commissions. I think in your charter proposal, there's limits for the commissions and the committees. You can't serve more than twice consecutively. Currently, we're at 37 vacant board and commission seats, 17 alternates, so a total of 54 vacant seats for city boards and commission. With these limits, which we currently don't have, how are we going to fill the boards and commissions? I joined the zoning board under duress, if you will, because we were trying to get businesses to, get their proposals through and get decisions on them. 2 meetings in a row, we didn't have a quorum, so they couldn't get it. So I joined, which barely made a quorum. So I guess my question is, how are we gonna, you know, when we're limiting the people who are willing to volunteer to 2 terms, how are we gonna do that? And then the other part of it is that the political ramifications of the new charter is basically saying, yeah, you can't have a commission that's entirely one party. Well, if you have volunteers, are they gonna all necessarily be filled with 2 parties or 3 parties, whatever it is? It seems to be an issue that's gonna create even more vacancies on our boards and commissions than we currently have. And we're gonna have a harder time doing business and attracting business because they're gonna come here and get frustrated with me because they can't get their hearing. And each hearing, believe it or not, costs some of these businesses a tremendous amount of money because they bring lawyers and planners and everything else. So that's my question. How do we get around that?
Joe, you wanna try that? You're big on this.
Well, Paul's looking and I'm thinking the same way. I believe we took parties out of commissions because we wanted to keep, I'm not sure if you picked that up early in the charter, but there.
This is the one that's published now. You passed out. You know, what page? It's under section 312.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It's under section 312.
312.
Yeah, what we did was leave the makeup of the commissions as they were.
Oh, I've got a question.
Subsection A, number 1. Yeah. Page 7, sir.
I don't see it.
Yes,
It's under
3.8,
312, section
oh,
A.
312, sorry.
314.
Yep.
314A.
314, I'm sorry. I looked at the bottom.
Yep.
Good point.
I got another better
Walk right
point.
by it and I'll give you a shot. Let me finish him and then. We can't change it now,
We
guys.
can't change it now. I don't see it to be that big of a hindrance. Again, I prefer city government to be party oriented, but nonpartisan. But on the other hand, my belief, because you're mentioning the fact that people aren't getting involved, I believe that a proper change in city government where people feel as though that when they say something, they're being heard. And this charter leans more toward the public having more of the ability to feel that their word is being heard. Bill Gardner, the Secretary of State, went through this charter with me one day when I was down there for other business, and he was very pleased with this charter because of the level of the feeling that a person could have that they're in charge, with the fact that we are having these committees and commissions with public on it to have input during the process. I mean, I'm going to stand on his feeling because I respect his opinions. He told me that this is something where at least the people of Claremont should have way more of a feeling that their input is being heard because of these committees and commissions that they actually are a part of, and they don't have to be an elected official to do it.
I'll tell you honestly, I missed it. I didn't see it at all. And had I spotted it, I guess I would have flagged it, because I agree, we've always been nonpartisan in the city part of it. So, you know.
I don't see it.
And the other thing I will tell you honestly is I mean, I know it's gonna be difficult to fill them. I think we all know that. but hoping when people see the chance to do more, you'll get them to come out. Hang on, I have this gentleman first, and I'll get back to
The
you.
one I disagree with.
What's your name?
Thomas Lacasse, Ward 2.
Oh, you and Paul know each other.
Nah, I haven't met him, but anyway, I have a disagreement when you say you're non-partisan. Because he's looking for more than two parties. How's he ever gonna see more than two parties? You got Republican and you got Democrat. Where's the independent party? You can't even vote as an independent in Claremont. You go, you
But
in
you
a
declare
primary,
yourself in a primary.
you declare yourself in a primary as an independent, you can't do it.
No. but
You
have
can't,
to
that's
pick a party,
exactly, so
and then
how's he
you
looking
can-
for more than two parties? Right there, you can't do it. You look all you want, you ain't gonna see them.
Libertarian could be on the buck. Hang on, and the Dick will, go ahead, I'll let Mr. Rock finish, and then Dick.
By all means.
Yep, I just wanted to clarify. I know that the public wants to be on commissions because I'm on a number. The part that's gonna make it more difficult is requiring political affiliation to be diverse. Because you're gonna have to start asking for political input before you start. Because you're gonna ask me if I'm a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. You don't. And then you're gonna sit there and you're gonna decide, okay, let's see, I've got 10 Democrats and 2 Republicans, so 3 of these Democrats can't be on. So now you've dwindled down a 12-party commission to 9 because you want to make it more parity on the political side. And to answer your question, I'm saying I don't want any political parties considered when they do commissions. I want citizens to have the right to volunteer and serve, regardless of their political affiliation.
One member from the opposite party would suffice for what this says. That's not really a big thing to do. I think if you took the council or you took this group right here, you've got a diversity of political parties here.
And you
And one commission, one member on the commission could be found. That's not that big of a roadblock.
But
It's definitely an issue. I understand, and like I said, it's part of the entire charter. I mean,
Right.
you're looking at the document as a whole.
I understand that, and I'm just pointing out
Yeah.
an issue. Right now, we have all of these vacancies, and now we're putting up more requirements to be on.
Okay, I appreciate that. Good point. Dick? You got it.
And part of it is a background question first. In our current structure with the council, does anyone have the ability to veto a vote with the current council?
No.
Okay, so that leads into the next one. What was the thinking behind providing a veto power to one of the aldermen who happens to be the mayor, number one? Okay, he's the mayor, but he's also, in order to, and maybe just a clarification, please, in order to override the veto, it is a 2/3 vote of all 9 members, which would include, what would it include?
5 of 8.
He can't vote on his own. They need 5 of the 8.
6 of the 8. Yeah, to get to
I'm sorry,
6 of the
6 of the 8. That's right.
which is
Thank you.
So it's really, because they're rounded up, you need a 3/4 vote of the aldermen in order to, okay. Help me to understand, please, why was it beneficial, why is it beneficial to have veto power in the hands of one member here as compared to what we currently have, which is debate, discussion, and an open vote by our current council? Why is the veto power something that makes it more beneficial for the citizens of Claremont?
Go ahead. Joe, you want to try it?
The strong mayor is the way it is explained, they call it strong mayor. This individual is going to run for a position to be the leader of the city. I believe that this charter commission didn't tie their hands, but they made it a process where more people are going to know the moves that the mayor wants to make in order to get something done. And that rolls into the committees that every alderman is gonna be on.
No disagreement.
So if the mayor is elected by the people and he or she is trying to get something done, and the committee comes to the alderman and convinces the alderman that, you know, this really isn't the way we want to go, but the mayor is the person that was individually selected by the people. This gives the mayor one more avenue to get what he or she wanted by a veto, and then a larger number of the aldermen having to disagree with that, so the mayor can move on with their position. And I think if all of this transpired, it would also become very public knowledge through the media that the mayor's trying to do something, he vetoed it, and more people would be informed about that.
If I could, I'd like to just follow on with that, which is, I appreciate everything you said, and I understand what you say. What I'm looking at is, I've only been here a short time, I'm here for 12 years. I'm trying to figure out what in the course of the past 12 years, or since the last time the charter was changed, what kind of a discussion took place in and amongst the councilors that would have been better handled had one of the councilors or a mayor or someone in there have veto power. What are you trying to solve by doing that we have seen in the recent past? Because I can't see it, but I can see a significant number of abuses coming from this, especially when what it requires is a 3/4 vote amongst the 8 in order to turn it, where there's far too much power being put into the hand of one person, whether voted in by the people, as they all are, or not, because we have many that are at large, voted in by the people, and you have those within the ward, voted in by the people. Why are we putting so much power in the hand of one person, and what are we trying to solve that we currently are not able to do?
I think the reason that the commission pushed the strong mayor is they felt that a strong elected mayor would be more responsive to the citizenry than a hired city manager, okay? Giving the veto power to the mayor, but having the council or commission or whatever, the alderman, have the right to stop it, is just a check and balance. You know, I mean, it may be awkward, but it's no different than having a motion made by the current city council pass, and then have someone bring it up for reconsideration and defeat it. I mean, it's basically the same thing. It's maybe a little more awkward. Yes? Charlene, love it?
Love it, Ward 2. Just to follow this conversation, since this proposed charter was based on Manchester and Nashua, and maybe just Manchester, is there a veto power in their charter?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Could I add, Mr. Siemens, the commission was not unanimous.
Oh, no, and I appreciate that, and I'm not here trying to get a yay or an, I'm trying to understand.
Well,
Because it's my understanding the charter was put together to make improvements upon the way we currently do business, so that in the future we do business better. We've created this, and necessarily following Concord, Nashua, or anyone else is not what Claremont does. Claremont's its own place. What did we solve by doing this that right now we can't do is really what I'm trying to do. Because, George, I appreciate it's open. There's a big difference between a motion that fails 5-4 and a veto that has to be turned over 6-8.
Mr. Chairman?
So that's,
hold on.
again,
Because of the, I need to say something for myself, because of the motion that was made earlier that would be continuing this. I have taken the position as chair, as all of you know, to work hard to make sure this gets presented correctly. Seeing that tonight was what I thought was going to be my last night, I felt free to say what I wanted to say starting tomorrow. But unfortunately, I said it today, so it'll be printed tomorrow. I just don't want you guys to think I stabbed you in the back. You know how I voted when it started, and you know how I voted all along. But unfortunately, I just walked into a trap. But just so you'll know, I want to be right up front with you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Bernie.
I'd just like to respond, and I said this before at a previous meeting of the commission, that it has been for a long time part of New Hampshire's political culture to be suspicious of power, and goes back to the King of England. As a matter of fact, George, the citizens, the founders of New Hampshire, in their wisdom in the Constitution, essentially handcuffed their chief executive by having an executive council with certain powers that required their assent before the governor could do it. And it's the only state in the Union that has that. So suspicion of power is a long-standing New Hampshire tradition. And in a way, it's being reflected here with, the governor has a veto power, but the legislature can override. But there are some things with contracts and appointments that the governor cannot unilaterally do. It requires the advisory assent of the Executive Council. So what I'm saying is, this is just another manifestation of that, in my opinion, of that longstanding culture that never trusts power completely. And that, of course, could arise with, I suppose, the city manager. Supposedly, a city council exercises oversight and, over a chief executive of a city. And, there's supposedly that kind of check on overreaching by a non-elected official. So I guess I see it as a cultural thing, and
Can I just please go back to the crux of the question? What is it that we are solving that we currently can't do just as well? Why did we have to put, I'm just asking the question.
Well,
Give it to him, Bernie. Why are we putting in place a veto that we don't have now, and what are we solving? Because the intent of the charter is to improve. What are we solving by doing it? I'm not disagreeing with Bernie and all its history, or any of the others that Joe said about how it works. What did we solve by putting it in? I'm just looking for a little
We
clarity
are
on that.
changing the scope of the leadership. There's not one person making all the decisions and then coming to the council and getting some type of an approval. We have an individual that is involved with committees and commissions. The process is completely discussed in the open prior to the full Board of Aldermen making the decision. The individual mayor has more authority than any of the council members do now, and that person should have the opportunity to be heard and even overheard if they're trying to make an improvement in the city. It works very well.
I appreciate what you say. I'm not sure it answered what I was hoping to hear, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
If you're looking for a specific answer that I'm not giving you,
No,
you and I see it from different angles.
I appreciate it.
Mike hasn't had an opportunity yet. Mike Satz Award what?
Two.
Don't forget that.
Joe, I'm a strong proponent of a citizen form of government. And I think you misrepresented the situation that we're currently under. When you said that one person goes to the city council, that one person makes the decision. If that city council shirks the responsibility that they have and allows that one person to make all the decisions, then shame on them. Don't shame on that individual. I've been here for 44 years. At the age of 21, I served on my first commission. I was the police commissioner. I don't know whether I was a chasee or a chaser, but that's the way it was back then. For 44 years, I've seen some excellent city councilmen, I've seen some excellent mayors, I've seen hundreds of my fellow city inhabitants serve on commissions, etc. It's what you put into it. And the question I'd like to ask is, what you found was wrong with the current city charter that led you to believe that this would rectify those things that you felt were wrong?
I can see comments every day.
I'm not sure it's what I found with the city charter. I think it's more the input that I had from the public that gave me the opinion that they feel as though they're not being heard and they're not getting the correct amount of information before a decision is made. And my feeling with this particular charter is because of committees and commissions with aldermen and public on board at the beginning of the process instead of the end of the process, the ability for them to know, understand, and be told what's going on rises to a higher level. And I'm going to stand on Bill Gardner's word. He says the same thing. He was impressed with this
Bill
charter.
Gardner is not from Claremont.
Absolutely,
No one
but
else
he's a
heard him say
professional
Easy.
why he said it.
in his field.
Now, Ray and I got to meet with Bill Gardner too, but probably before Joe. We didn't have the charter completed at that time, but, or the proposed charter.
May I just have one quick follow-up?
But I did not hear Secretary Gardner voice an opinion, pro or con, for what we were doing. What I heard Secretary Gardner say was, this is the format, this is the process, this is how you have to do it. I didn't see him voice an opinion, pro or con.
Mike has a
If
follow-up.
I can just state, if I don't hold my current city councilor attributable to me, then why would I hold the next alderman attributable to me? I don't think we're going to be creating anything new. I think it's going to be the same problem. And people have to be involved. People who can protect their democracy are the people themselves. And if you shirk your duties, and it is a duty for you to be informed and see what the city's doing and how they're spending your money and your neighbor's money, then it's going to be the same thing under any form of government. And that's how we're going to lose our democracy. We've got to be active. We've got to ask questions. And so I don't think we're going to change the government. We have to change the role of the politician, the role of the citizen, and get them more involved in the city.
Mike, I can say, and not to defend or mostly to explain, there's been an underlying current in the commission that the current city government isn't responsive. You know, and in fairness to the city manager, whether you like him or you don't, he doesn't vote. So the problem isn't sitting in there, it's sitting up here. So all I'm saying is that what you saw come out of this group is what they thought, as the majority of us thought, would bring more responsive government. A government that would be more attuned to what the citizens are saying because the citizens would be involved early on. Whether that would work or not, I mean, if you want to really be objective, you could end up in the next election, if this passes, with the exact same cast of characters, except you're going to be paying them $3,000 for doing nothing, you know. But I'm telling you that it's a perception that's real enough that it's caused this to be brought out to the community. So it can't all be ignored.
But if I may respond to that, when you were mayor, when Bob was mayor, when Ray was mayor, they come and say, what do you think of this, et cetera. There was interaction. So what you need to do is you just have to be more proactive in the community. You have to be careful who you vote for. You got to get people to vote. You got to get people to run for office. And I don't think you're going to solve anything tonight or with this charter. And the last charter lasted for 66 years. And what you do this year will last for hopefully 60 or 66 years. So you're not solving a short-term problem. The city charter was 66, 48. It was 47. I'm sorry.
AJ, Mr. Moranville. Step on that thing.
Sorry about that.
AJ, would you identify?
It looks to me like this question is being deliberated and discussed right at the minute. There's two parts to it. One, the mayor has a veto power, and then the aldermen have a comeback as to an override of the mayor's veto. Two different things. Now, it's conceivable that when the aldermen are meeting and they're having their discussion, and they're having their vote, majority of the aldermen are for something, and this mayor decides he's against it by himself, so he vetoes it. It's a dead issue. Then it can be overridden. It's almost like an extra check on what's going on. I don't think it's a judgment to anything. I think it looks like a check and balance, but there are two separate things there. And if it has been discussed before by the majority of the aldermen, and they're all for it, and this guy decides, or the lady decides, I'm not for it, I'm gonna veto it, it's out the window. This gives a way for the aldermen to come back and override it. Pretty simple solution that I can see.
Any other questions from anyone who hasn't spoken for the first time? Kyle, you came ready to ask questions. Okay. I think, Mr. Levitt, were you looking again? Because that's
Yes,
not.
sir.
Go ahead.
My only question, and it's a true
Thank
question,
you for
but
the
it
sir.
gets-
I didn't know it was that old, but.
Going through looking at this, you used the numbers 5 and 6, such as it takes 5 aldermen to nominate and 6 to remove. You just now said it takes 6 of 8 to override the veto. But you made it a 2/3, not a 3/4, because 2/3 is 62%,
Right.
which is never going to happen. Was there thought in why you're choosing 5 and why you're choosing 6, or was it just because the other charter had 5 and 6, and you left it that way?
The other charter had more people, but we used the percentage. Manchester has more aldermen than we're looking at. So we used the percentage.
The same percent of,
The same
of
percentage.
the
that
entire
Manchester
group.
had. But we have less aldermen, we would have less aldermen than Manchester has. But we just use their percentage of vote.
Mr. Chairman?
The decision to maintain 9 city councilmen or aldermen was defeated. And the consensus of the committee was that 8 was the number.
Yes, sir. But overriding the veto is the only
Yes,
time I
that's
see
right.
where you use a
Exactly,
percentage.
that's one of the
Everything
reasons why
else
we,
is a
some of us
specific
argue
number.
for 9,
Nine
because
would've
2/3
worked.
would be 6.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Folter.
3 points. In response to the last one, 5 is a majority. 4, which is 4 of 8, is not a majority because a majority has to be more than half. So 5 is a majority and 6 is a supermajority. So that's the difference. Apparently, the commission felt that a majority was sufficient in one case, but a supermajority was required in the other case.
I think you raised that issue during the meetings too, if I remember, because supermajorities are something I hear a lot.
The other thing I wanted to mention was, it does seem to be the case from voter turnout that there is a pervasive citizen apathy in Claremont. And I would love to have Mr. Satso's suggestions on how that could be, how the apathy could be defeated, to put it in those terms. Because as you point out, I mean, there's a responsibility and a duty as a citizen here, and we're kind of, I hate to be negative, but in some respects we're failing that in Claremont. And what can we do to ignite the people?
Give you a half-hour show every week. Mr. Rock.
Tom Rockwood, too. I have a question that kind of concerns me and concerns a lot of people that I've talked to. And that is that under the mayor form of government that you're proposing, we would elect the mayor from the citizens of Claremont. Has to be here at least 1 year. Kind of goes unspoken, I guess, that if you get on the ballot and you win the popular vote, then you would become mayor and get a $90,000 a year job. Under the current situation, the council goes out and asks for applications from anybody across the country who has been involved in government, and they have certain qualifications that they have to meet. And out of those applicants, maybe there's 10 or 20 of them, they vet them, and their educational background, their experience in government, their things happened, previous jobs that they've had, in government all comes into play. So how does voting somebody in by popular vote mean that as a manager of the city?
You got one running the country right now. Has absolutely no idea what the hell to do when he's there.
Can we answer the question that was asked?
So are you saying that's the way to go?
I'm not saying anything, I'm saying it's the way we've always gone. Excuse me, who said that? I didn't hear you. I'm running the meeting. If you don't like it, you know, I don't come bother you when you're over there running your school board meeting.
We don't need to talk about personal opinion, just answer the question.
I don't need you to preach to me, Dick.
I'm going to.
Well, you're gonna get ruled out of order. I don't have a problem with throwing you out.
I appreciate that. Let's answer the question that was asked, please.
I'm gonna ask you once more to let me run this meeting.
Fair enough.
Nick, wait, I got Nick was ahead of you.
Mr. Rock, to answer your question, it doesn't. I wasn't in favor of it, so I can let somebody that is in favor of it answer. I'd love to hear it.
Excuse me, I would really prefer that, you know, like I said earlier, tomorrow I'm my own person, I can say what I want, but I don't really think, people know how we voted as a group. I really would rather not start playing one against the other in this commission. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
I'm not, but I feel bad that
I don't
I'm
think-
not able to answer people's questions because you know,
If
I
you've
don't-
noticed, I've let the people who was most interested in particular parts of this
Yep.
do the answering.
Yeah.
The only time I've tried to get in is to clarify it,
I won't
so
answer.
I like what you're saying, so, now, go ahead, Ronnie.
People will be vetted that are running for mayor. And you don't know who lives 4 houses down from him. He may be the CEO of a big company in Hanover that just retired at age 60 and will put in for it. To make a statement that it's all gonna be amateurs is not a good statement.
I didn't
No,
say
he didn't
that.
say that.
But no, I know you didn't say that, but I'm saying they're gonna be vetted.
We did try to put a clause in, and in fact, we had a clause in that said there would be public meetings prior to any candidate, and the state told us we couldn't do it. We couldn't put that kind of requirement. We could say, yes, you have to live in the city, but we couldn't say you have to come to a public hearing and be vetted before you can go on the ballot. But we did try that. Joe?
In regards to that same statement, you're mentioning that we can go all over the country and we can pick whoever we want that is the one individual that will make an attempt to bring things forward. I'm going to jump on to something that Mr. Santos said. Now you have somebody running your city that isn't from Claremont.
Don't they?
And I have a problem with that. People from Claremont know what Claremont wants. A strong mayor is only one of a group of people that will now be running the city. It's not just the city manager, to the point where you have with committees, instead of the decision being 95% made when it gets to the alderman, it's made with a committee, which is a group of people, which is collective intelligence. It's a bunch of people making a decision. I find that a better way to get to the answer of more so what the people of a community would want if all of them people are from the community.
Could I respond to that?
Yes, go ahead. It's the way we've been running them.
I wish you would have been here when we were
Joe?
doing this so the responses would be while we're building this, but go ahead and make your response.
Well, my understanding is that the city manager currently works for the city council.
That's
Is
right.
responsible to the city council and can be fired by the city council. So aren't the city council members from the community and have the most power to run the city as opposed to the city manager?
That's a true statement.
Yeah, the manager doesn't vote, you know, I said that before. Hang on, Dick, before I let you, was there anyone else? All yours.
I'm Neil Ward, Ward 1. You know, just sitting here as a private, just a citizen who votes, you know,
I would rather have the city have a point man that I can vote in or out, rather than to have the city manager that I don't have the vote on. And I've heard other people make that statement. And I think that's one reason why this commission was created. Because in the past, I don't think a lot of people that I know have felt like they had a say, so much of a say, because of the city manager's position. You know, where if I've got a mayor that, you know, I can look at him for 2 years, and if I don't like what's going on, he's the guy I'm looking at. He's the point guy that I've got to vote to replace or not.
Valid point. And if no one, Big Bernie, Dick was asking for another shot
Yeah, go
before we
ahead.
get another
Go
one.
No, I want to follow on with the residency piece, because I remember Bob read it earlier. How are we defining residency? How are we defining a resident? Someone who lives here 12 months a year? Someone who owns, well, I understand the 1 year part. But what do you have to do over that 1 year? Do you have to live here all 12 months? Do you have to own a property for at least 1 year? I'm just looking for, or can we have a carpetbagger that comes in and wants to be mayor? So I'm just trying to understand what you mean, or how are we defining resident in that one? Just clarification.
I believe residency defined under the RSA is basically where you lay your head. So I mean, if you want to spend 9 months here and 3 months in Florida, you're a Claremont resident.
If you want to spend 3 months here and 9 months in Florida, are you?
I would say you're not going to be a resident then.
If it's in the RSA, I'll look it up.
The
Thank
RSA
you.
defines, I'm pretty sure it defines it.
How's the school board do it?
Mike Statz.
Because I've been on a lot of school board meetings, I've seen a lot of people from out of
Hang on.
town and
I'll look it up.
If you're
Hang on.
paying the mayor $100,000 a year, it's in the chart at $90,000 a year. Do you need a new charter commission to give him a raise in 6 years or 8 years? I know the cost of living increases there, but I'm surprised that you're putting figures into a chart because that would indicate that you have meetings more often.
Well, that's the reason the Manchester Charter revision was defeated a few times, because they tried to raise Mayor Gatz's salary.
I know he is.
And they kept turning it down because they didn't want him to get more money. But I think we had this set up, I was just looking for it, where the hell is it? Here we go. Yeah.
It can be raised, but it can't be raised during this term, Larry.
Right, it only can be raised by the cost of living from the time of election until the close of the term. So Mike's right, there's no provision for a general increase, I didn't think we did. But I would think, as it is in the current charter, where the current councilman can make changes through the year, if I'm right, and I believe I am, why couldn't the Board of Aldermen do the same thing? We didn't take anything out.
Yeah, but that charter goes away, so they can't do it.
No, I understand that. But we
And
didn't-
we had the discussion that, my thinking was, we don't need to make big raises for an individual as a Board of Aldermen. And if his pay went up and he maintained his position through multiple years, because he's doing a good job, his pay is gonna go up what the cost of living is. And to me, that's okay. This is a job where you're electing an individual from the city that's been a member of the city and should have some interest in the city, and we're already not paying what we're paying a manager, but we are paying, if I remember correctly, more than Manchester. I think it's $5,000 more than Manchester.
If it is, it just went there.
Mr. Gaddis is a dedicated public servant who's a multi-millionaire.
I know it. So he could afford the 50, yes, he's not worried about it.
This is a person, in my mind, that would be somebody that wants to make a difference in Claremont, and it's not for a paycheck or her paycheck at the end of the week.
Well, I can tell you, Mike, that we had some real healthy discussions on this, because I think if I remember right, it started out, we were gonna offer 35,000. So that'll give you an idea of how hard it was even to get to 90. But if you come, what we finally said is, you know, we didn't, you know, whatever, but say you're running a $20 million business, what would you pay a CEO? 90 wouldn't do it, but in a city with the, supposedly, you know, the, what is it, guys, we were looking at? Stability.
That's what we're concerned with. If somebody, if you pay somebody $150,000 who saves you $300,000, then that's to your benefit.
Sure it is.
The city manager or the mayor at 90,000.
I know somebody do it for nothing.
We just hired one at, what, 92.5? He's not a resident, but I guess he will be. So somebody knows the definition of resident. Between you and Bernie, you're driving me crazy. Go ahead, Bernie.
I'd just like to say that people who ignore political appearance and political reality are shutting themselves off from richness of public and civic life. And so what I'm about to say is in the political realm, namely that if a mayor gets too many, if an elected mayor gets too many vetoes overturned, then he or she is presumably using up political capital that won't be applied to their next election. Either that, or the council, if it's overriding the veto, and the mayor does get reelected, then I don't mean council, I mean the aldermen are out of sync. So there's something here in this process that should affect or have a relationship to the next election, namely, either the mayor with too many overturns is out of sync with the citizenry, or the Board of Aldermen is out of sync. Now, having said that, I think one of the issues here that people in favor of the current city manager form, or any city manager type of form, is the professionalism of the city manager. Well, there are various kinds of professionalism, from the kind where you have to be licensed by the state, like doctors and veterinarians and so on, and maybe even an exam. So there is the state protective one, and I'm not suggesting for a moment that city managers should be licensed by the state as professional practitioners. However, there is another kind of professionalism that's sort of, I guess you have to call it the guild professionalism, where there's a national association that maintains the professional criteria. And in the city manager among city managers, that's the ICMA, International City and County Management Association. And so through membership, they have a continuing education requirement, they have a code of ethics, and among the things in the code of ethics is certain prohibitions about appearance of political reality. Appearance of political influence. I don't have, I mean, I have a copy, and I was an associate member of that association, just for informational purposes. So I guess what I'm getting at is there's also the political reality and appearance about what constitutes professionalism and what doesn't count professionalism. Now, unfortunately, you can't make guild professionalism a requirement in the hiring of a city manager. But presumably all that sort of thing comes out in the vetting process. And it has to do with education, experience, no exam, code of ethics.
Okay, Bernie, you used up all your time for tonight, and a little bit of next one. Okay?
Yes, sir, Mr.
You
Chairman.
used up all yours, but go ahead.
It's my last.
I yield my time to Mr. Seaman.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. part of the conversation, and I have watched all of these on CCTV, even though not being here, there's been an ongoing undercurrent, shall we say, of attempting to try and reduce the cost of living in Claremont. It's very expensive to live here. And it is very expensive to live here. Our taxes and cost of living here are relatively high. One piece that we have added in, though, as a part of the charter, is paying all the people. We did not do before. We did not pay our counselors. We don't pay anyone to sit on a committee. We don't pay anyone to sit on a council. Why was it necessary? What was the thinking behind adding $24,000 of expense into our governing structure and providing a salary for our aldermen, whereas now we don't have that? And how is that consistent with trying to, in effect, roll back some of the expense of living in Claremont?
Go ahead, Joe, and then
The bottom line of the whole package is still cheaper than what we're paying the leader of the city right now. The next thing is I at least, and I think some others here, felt as though by mandating attendance on committees and commissions, we were increasing the activity that each Board of Aldermen is going to have to do. I personally felt that some compensation should come out of having to devote quite a bit more time in order to attract people, and it's only a stipend. I mean, you're not getting, it's kind of like us guys that go down to Congress, and they can take taxes out of that. It's a stipend. It basically, you are going to increase their need of devotion to the city. They should get some compensation. That was,
It's better than paying $50,000 for a kindergarten kid to go to school for a year. That is a better deal for sure.
Yeah, in fact, I think it's the Cornish School Board that pays their school board members a stipend. And it only averages out to like $250 maybe a month, which would be your gas. So it's very little.
Okay, again, the question was, we currently don't. Joe certainly addressed from the point of view of why now and not before, as opposed to...
There is one thing I can tell you, though, in the day that Ray and I met with Secretary of State Gardner, he was totally shocked that we didn't pay any of our elected officials. I don't think that's a reason to do it, but I mean, he did mention to us, he couldn't believe it. And that would, to me, having spent like 30 years involved in it, if this passes, I'm going for back pay.
I'm sure if you watch the meetings, you did get the fact that next year it's going to give his $3,000 back if he gets it, so that's kind of a political ad for him.
All right.
Give it a 2. Yes, Charlene?
Charlene Levitt, Ward 2. In your presentation, you said that in the proposed charter, one of the things that received majority agreement was the need for standing committees. And I was wondering, should this proposed charter fail, what would you like in addition to see become reality, other than standing committees?
If I had the choice, I mean, the 2 referendum issues are critical, where people can either vote up or down on an ordinance they don't like, or they can vote to tell the elected officials what they would like to see. I think that's critical. Indefinitely, the committees, without a doubt. I served on the council, I don't know how many years, and we had active, in fact, I was chair of the Public Safety Committee for years, you know, and it worked. It always worked. I can understand how someone sitting, for example, in Guy's office might look at that as having people interfere. But if it's run correctly, it's always been good for the city. But anyway, those 2 are major.
And the referendum.
And the referendums are really big, right?
They want Manchester.
5 of the 9 members here all have or are city councilors. And some of us, older people who were in the 80s, all argued And that was the one thing I think we all agreed on, was that the idea of standing committees by is a good thing. And that it allowed the city councilors to be more closer contact to constituents and to the issues of people. And those and if I heard your question correctly, you were saying, well, what would those committees be? And I think they were existing, correct, Bob? Public safety.
No, that wasn't my question.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's what I thought you were questioning.
What besides the standing committee?
I was on a roll.
Did you, as a commission, feel strongly about that you would like to see should this proposed charter fail?
What other changes that we recommend would we like to see the council try to enact if this doesn't pass? And that's why I said the 2 referendum. Article 7 is critical, the committees. Anything else, gentlemen, ladies?
You want everyone to be paid $3,000?
Now, you know my position on that. As soon as I find out if I'm eligible. But that's,
George?
yes,
I would say the standards of conduct for the council and the mayor.
in the preamble. Anyone else? Does that answer it? Yes, sir.
Chuck Allen, Ward 3. I came here mostly because I had heard the channels over, just to express my opinion, mostly CCTV, about this charter and how terrible it is, but that's not the point. I think it's a bad idea, and I think, you trying to stifle people's opinions would be a bad idea. You said you only wanted questions. So I think people will come into this next one on CCTV, and they're going to stand up there and give their opinion.
And I'll rule them out of order because we've had
Because
3 months of that.
We just had the completion of the charter. Now people have seen it in its completion, they can give their opinion.
They can give their opinion standing in front of their homes, they can give their opinion out in the street, they're not gonna give it
You're gonna end
here.
up having people have to go to the council meeting and speak and not at the
Go ahead.
citizens forum, telling people why it's a bad idea. And the strong mayor and alderman is a bad idea. But that's, I've got a whole bunch of other points why it's a bad idea.
Go ahead.
And
You
I'm
got
not
the
an
floor.
activist, and I will state this later, I've never been an activist, but I would do everything in my power to encourage every voter, 18 and older, to vote no on this charter because of the strong mayor and alderman. And there are other points too.
If this commission wants to change the format of the meetings, then let's get a motion up, and if you wanna open it up to debate, you go to keep it
not
as
what we're here for
information only,
tonight,
but
right?
if you wanna change it, it's your right to change it. Now's your chance.
Quite frankly, I thought we were just going by the law when we.
We went by the law until we handed the piece of paper over to Glenn, then we're off the hook.
No, I
Everything we
mean, these
do,
informational meetings are part of the law, that we have at least one. And
we
we've had
did.
2.
This is our 3rd.
Right.
Excuse me.
Yes.
It went to Concord, didn't it?
Alan's Water's first name.
Chuck
Allen, Ward 3.
3.
Chuck.
Joe.
Charles Adams.
It went to Concord, didn't it? And back.
Do you have a
Yeah, it
motion?
went to Concord, it's been vetted by everybody and then brought it down there.
Yeah.
It doesn't-
Do you still have a motion on the floor?
I don't have a motion. I asked if anyone wanted to make a motion
No.
to allow open debate, and I haven't got that back, so I guess the answer is no. Mr. Rock?
I just have one final question, Tom Rock, Ward 3. The section 2.02 on page 2, Article D, says the Board of Aldermen shall be the final judge of the election and qualifications of its members. And I'm not sure I understand why the Board of Aldermen would judge the election of the members.
Pretty much what they do now, you certify the vote, that's about all you're really saying. You know, I mean, I don't think we're saying if you get elected, I know I'm not saying that if you get elected, the Board of Aldermen can turn it out and say, nah, sorry, but we don't think you qualify.
That's all.
Usually what happens is they'll get together and, I guess that's what they call it, isn't it, Mike? They certify the vote?
Canvass the vote.
Canvass the vote, that's the word I was looking for, right. simply to say, yeah, there it is, we agree.
Look, I guess that, the only other thing I'd like to say is I know that everybody here put a lot of work and effort into the charter.
Yeah, they did.
I appreciate the effort. I'm not so sure I appreciate the outcome. But the effort certainly is shown in the amount of and volume of stuff that you had to go through. So I would thank you for the effort.
Thank you. If my hackles come up when somebody tells me I'm trying to stifle debate, they don't know me. It bothers me, but that's what the rules of the game were. I mean, and people could have been here the night we voted on that and expressed their opinion on that too. Michael?
I have a question, and I also agree with Tom that you fellows did a lot of work, and the work is appreciated, although we do have serious problems with the outcome. Section 2.11 removals. I'm a local business owner. I have a number of people working for me. The mayor may remove the department head by giving the department head written notice of and the basis for such action. The removal shall become effective upon the vote of 6 members of the Board of Aldermen. The department head shall be given the opportunity to be heard prior to such vote. I think you're opening up a legal situation here that will cost the city hundreds of thousands of dollars at a time. The mayor's going to have a strong mayor form of government. You don't emasculate and say, I will fire you, but I got to get 6 votes before I can fire you. And then you have the right to appeal to the people who are trying to override me. And to me, that's a real serious problem. I believe in fairness, I believe in professionalism, and this would not be a very professional vehicle.
I think among the commission members, the definition of a strong mayor was bantied around. I think what we really propose, or what the commission has proposed, is a strong mayor, but not so strong. You know, I mean, when you've got the veto power and you can overrule, or you've got this, but you can overrule. And I think the concern, Mike, was that, yeah, we want a strong mayor, but we don't want a dictator. So by putting some checks and balances in.
But George, you fired people.
Oh, some people in this room.
You see the position you'd be in.
Mike, what was the section again?
All right, Charlene, give you
As
one.
a follow-up to Mike's question, I would ask then, if you're following the Manchester Charter, and the Manchester Charter has veto power, does the Manchester Charter also define the mayor's basically hiring and firing authority in that same way?
The only difference was, again, was they have more aldermen, so the same percentage of, yes, to answer your question, yes, but the number of votes would be different because the number of aldermen are different. So, but the basic language is the same, yes. Am I right? I think I am.
It's
Yeah.
very close.
Mr. Moranville.
AJ Morello, Ward 2. I think the answer to that is
What two?
that if,
Just what I want from you.
again, you got a female or male, strong mayor, and he decided he didn't like working with somebody that had already been there in the slot, which is gonna stay the way it is, all employees are gonna be hired, nobody gets laid off and all that, contrary to what's been put out there. And secondly, if he thinks he's gotta get rid of a department head, that's his prerogative. But I'm sure he would have discussed it with the council before, or the alderman before. This way here, it's just one person. You rise and fall on one person, nobody has anything to say about anything. In case they're vindictive and there's a personal problem, this would cure that, giving the alderman, again, an override of a mistake been made. I don't think it gets an extra lawsuit. In fact, I think it stops lawsuits.
Nothing stops lawsuits.
This is not the private sector.
That's unfortunate, but true. All right, is there any other discussion? Yeah, Ronnie.
AJ just mentioned something that I'd like to bring up. There's a lot of discussion amongst the city employees that when this charter passes, there's going to be massive layoffs there's gonna be terminations and everything else. I spent 43 years in the fire department, and I got firemen coming up to me and ask me, are you trying to make this an all-volunteer fire department? And no matter how much you tell them, nothing's gonna change. There's nothing in this charter that's gonna get rid of anybody, or lay off anybody, or anything like that. The rumors are totally false. And I'd like to go on record as to say that, because it's really going